Volume on. And the theme down. 1 2 1 2. Sorry, I'm just going to fuck about with these mics a wee bit. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Get you up a bit. Okay, everybody. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Politics, Culture, and Some Other Shit. I'm joined by Poddy Cairns, and we're going to talk about the meeting you had yesterday with the Minister for about the situation at Lough Neagh.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, everybody that listens to this podcast knows the Lough has a particular significance to me. And I'm a member of Save Our Shores and the activist campaigner groups, of which Poddy leads, among others. And yesterday you went to have a meeting with the Minister, who is a self-proclaimed environmentalist.
Well, that's it. I mean, I was hoping to be able to come on here and we would dig into everything that he was coming out with, but I'm sure as anybody that listens to this will know, and you don't get into the position he's in, the Minister, without learning how to talk shite, basically. So he talked he talked circles around us for about half an hour, didn't give anything away, didn't promise anything, didn't commit to anything. But I thought I would bring the agenda of the meeting anyway, and I thought we could talk about a few points off it because it's good for people to know the stuff that the campaign is demanding, the stuff that the campaign is trying to raise.
Yeah.
Because like the Save Lough Neagh campaign came about last summer, and it pulls together so many different groups. It pulls together, charities, environmental conservation organisations, grassroots community groups like Save Our Shores, political parties like People for Profit. It's everything in one, under one big banner.
And just to expand on that, literally, Friends of the Earth, Surfers Against Sewage, and other environmental groups have all come under, are all in one voice here.
Big time. We're all just working collaboratively. We call it a coalition, which is basically what it is.
Good. And I'll just explain to the listeners some of you who may not realise just exactly what's going on. We live here at North Armagh, the bottom right hand corner, if you're looking at it on a map, of Lough Neagh. And Lough Neagh, the biggest freshwater lake in Western Europe, so it's a unique environmental ecosystem as an area that's been designated area of special scientific interests. Mm-hmm. It's got the highest level of environmental accolades and protections, allegedly, that's available. It beyond being made into a national park, I don't think it can be given much more so-called protection or consideration. And also, it's also the supply of drinking water for 40% of the people in the north of Ireland. Yeah. And it is currently being used as a toilet to the point of, it's not an exaggeration to say that it's an environmental emergency right now. Yeah. We had this past couple of years, which we've never had before, like Poddy and myself, we've lived here our entire lives, and I've never known such a thing as an algae bloom until a few years ago.
That's it, yeah.
So the amount of nitrates, we'll get into it here, but the amount of runoff from domestic sources and farming sources specifically, the loch is also being exploited commercially by sand dredgers, fishermen, etc., and mostly through the portal of an absentee landlord, which is very medieval. So there's so much going on, but we're going to get into it. So you went to the Minister yesterday.
We did.
Do you want to have a bit of a chat about that?
So we were. It's kind of ironic actually because for anybody that doesn't know, the Deira Minister, Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, is from the Alliance Party, and they were one of the biggest cheerleaders in trying to get Stormont back up and running. For one of the reasons being that they wanted to take action on Lough Neagh. Nothing we can do until Stormont's back. Nothing we can do until Stormont's back. They've been given the portfolio now of the environment, and basically myself, Jerry Carroll, Declan Allison from Friends of the Earth, Ruby from Surfers Against Sewage, and Mary O'Hagan, obviously from Save Our Shores, big part of the campaign. We all went down and raised these agenda points. We had three broad sort of strokes points we wanted to talk about: the ownership of the loch, the ownership model, addressing the pollution sources, so pollution and extractivism. So that would be the commercial sand extraction, the agricultural pollution, and the sewage dumping, raw sewage dumping. Addressing those three big sources. And then the third point that we really wanted to address was the establishment of an independent environmental protection agency to basically enforce all this and to hold polluters accountable and test random samples and basically just protect the environment. It's not happening now.
Can we just explain to our listeners how we got here? How did we get to this place? First of all, the lough has always been used as a source of extraction.
Yeah,
that's correct, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But there was a particular piece of legislation. I think it went through in 2016. Was it the thing for growth? Going for growth.
Aye.
Which, do you want to explain about that?
Yeah, so it was. I think it was 2011 or 2012. It was around early sort of 2010s anyway. And yeah, Sinn Féin, DUP, Alliance, UUP, SDLP, all the big parties signed up to it. And it was basically putting into policy a way of trying to kickstart economic growth in the north by rapidly industrialising agriculture. So this is when you've seen, don't want to get you in any slander bother here, but big agricultural corporations getting supercharged profits basically, and obviously as they grow and grow and grow, the amount of waste that they're producing grew as well. So I think one of the statistics that we point to is that in 2018 alone, all of the waste that was produced by the pork industry, so the pig farms, was the equivalent of the waste that would be produced by 12 million human beings. So if 12 million human beings lived here in the north, all of the shit we produced in 1 year, that's what the pig industry is already producing. And if you think that our sewage infrastructure isn't even enough to deal with our waste, where the fuck is all that going?
Exactly.
Do we curse on this podcast?
Oh, you curse away.
Sweet.
Yeah. Hold on. And don't worry about we can't be sued. I've got nothing to give anyone. if you're going to sue me, good luck to you. And that's actually a staggering statistic. And then because we don't have the infrastructure, the lough just sitting there is obviously an easy target for capitalists, basically, to and this is a thing I don't like whenever we talk about these issues, that we talk about we frame socialism and capitalism as I'm going to go broad tent here, big picture thing, but we talk about these things and we say capitalists, and then the inevitable answer that you get back is, oh, so we'll just not make anything then. We'll just not grow any food. We'll not do it. We'll have to do.
We'll live in caves.
Yeah. No one's going to. Which is such fucking bullshit. It's staggering. It is beyond belief. So it's such a bad faith argument whenever people come back with that sort of stuff. It actually angers me. It makes me annoyed, because you realise that you're literally wasting your breath. You're talking to a half-wit, or you're talking to someone that is kind of smart, that should be able to outthink that argument.
They're not arguing in good faith when they say stuff like that,
Yeah.
And the thing to say is, if you're arguing with an idiot from a distance, then we can tell which one's which. So what's the point,
Yeah. Well, they all want, don't argue with don't get into a fight with a pig, is it? I don't get into a fight with a pig. You both get covered in shit, and the pig likes it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think something to make very clear whenever we're talking about the pollution sources and stuff for Lough Neagh is, we're not talking about every single farmer here. We know there's a lot of farmers that are custodians of the land and that farm in somewhat sustainable ways. We're mostly talking about big corporations here, big factory farms. We're not basically coming after the wee guy.
And that is important to say. I mean, the farmers, that title, custodians of the land, is sometimes laughable, but we understand there are pressures on farmers that they can't avoid. They have to make a living, and whenever margins are being cut in supermarkets again and things like that, in the supply chain are putting pressures on these guys to turn out a product at a certain price, and then a minister comes along and passes legislation that basically allows them to, in economics there's a thing called externalities, and the things that should be added onto the price of a product that aren't that don't have to be dealt with, and inevitably that always means environmental costs.
Aye, yeah.
So if you had to pay for what it costs to dispose of this stuff, and that goes on to the price of the product, the price of the product will go up.
Aye.
So a supermarket then says, we want this product at a certain price. The farmer is got pressure put on him. A sympathetic minister comes along, passes through some legislation, and boom, you've got your sausages at whatever price.
£1.50 or whatever.
Yeah,
Aye.
yeah, when there should be more.
Do you know what? It's a really good point, and I'm sure you know yourself. Like the previous Minister of the Environment was Edwin Poots, who comes from a big farming background.
He owns two pig farms or something.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he brought in exactly the type of legislation you're talking about.
yeah.
He put caps on the fines that serial polluters
Yeah.
would receive. You know.
Yeah.
And that's something that we
So now
lobbied.
it's basically, it's not a fine, it's if you can afford to pollute, have at
Oh
it.
God, it's just, and it's not even cost of doing business. It's completely irrelevant. Like one of the companies that we came across, and we staged some direct action protest at their premises. Mash Direct, you've definitely seen them in the shops.
oh,
you know,
yeah,
the potatoes, the carrots, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
They basically every year going back to 2010 and further, there's articles online of them polluting that leads to fish kills in the river that's adjacent to their property.
Yeah.
And the fines that they get were like £200, £300, £400. I think there was one of £600. But like, do you know what I mean? This is a multi-million-pound company that exports to the US, everywhere.
I
like,
personally can't-
£600 is
I can't believe there's such a company making such a useless product. They chop up your carrots for you and then you pay for that in a plastic bag. It's ridiculous. That does, that blows my mind. You know.
well, to be fair,
I know
speaking
people
as
are
someone that's
busy.
quite lazy,
Yeah, I know.
before all this, I would have used
Yeah,
it once or twice.
I know, but
yeah.
it's just one of those things. Again, getting back to that point I made earlier, where you say, well, where do you go? You as associates would have us living back in a fucking cave or whatever it is. No, I would have you mashing your own potatoes. I think it's okay. I think to save our lock, you can mash your own
Yeah.
potatoes or cut up your own fucking carrots.
Aye.
That's
Or
fine.
Even addressing these people, the polluters, and saying you're going to pay more than £600 if you pollute that river.
Well, obviously that's what it needs to be. You can't, obviously, you're not going to stop a business like that existing.
No.
But you can put in place it's a politics of what you can do, and what you can do is put in place legislation that says if you're going to poison a fucking river, for God's sake, you're going to have to you're going to be hit. You're going to notice it,
100%.
and that's not unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not. But they've lowered the bar so much when it comes to environmental concerns. They really have. Like it makes it seem like you're asking for the sun and the moon here when you're asking for things that are common sense. You know what I mean? But like this is all a result of the fact that, like, it's in the name, DAERA, Department of the Agriculture and Environment. What, for one, why are they chucked into the same department? And two, why is agriculture, like, basically any decisions that are made for agriculture at the behest of the environment? You know what I mean? And this is another reason we need an independent environmental protection agency.
Yeah.
If all the budget is going to, and like this is because the Ulster Farmers Union here is massive and it has such like wealth and power behind it.
Yeah.
It can lobby for decisions like nobody's business basically. Like
And they will be successful in it, usually.
they've shut plenty of stuff down. They've shut plenty of legislation down over the years. Because they have that money and power, and they have the ear of the DUP and yourself. Like.
And clearly the ear of Alliance. So there's the meeting agenda. We're okay to share this with the world, right? No one's going to be.
I hope so.
That's if there's
Hopefully nobody gives us any shit after.
If there's a quick edit in this, everybody, at some point without explanation, it's because we don't want to. We don't want to embarrass anyone or have Poddy get sued.
Well, we can embarrass the minister.
Okay, we can embarrass. Oh, right.
I think that's safe to say.
Okay, fair enough. That's good. I'm all up for that. So, here's the meeting agenda from yesterday. So, the introductions, how people don't want to see business as usual. We need transformational change if the lock is to survive.
Pretty straightforward.
That's the nicest way you could actually put an environmental catastrophe. And you could frame, we're talking about environmental catastrophe, but we're going to give you this.
You think that's nice, isn't it? You think that's quite middle of the road,
Absolutely,
right?
middle of the road.
Wouldn't even commit to agreeing with that.
Get the fuck.
It was terrible.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Right. B. Introduction. 1B. Talk about Save Lough Neagh Coalition and 5 campaign demands. The 5 campaign demands are an end to private ownership of Lough Neagh.
Yep.
We'll get into that. We'll go through these point by point. Establishment of an independent environmental protection agency. Urgent investment in a research and recovery plan, i.e. open facilities like Trad Point. 4. Address pollution extraction through ending commercial sand dredging, reducing sewage dumping, and tackling agricultural runoffs. And 5. Investigate granting Lough Neagh rights of nature status. And we'll just hit the rest of these real quick. C. 1C, Mary from Save Our Shores, is to talk about the impact of crisis on local communities, dippers, businesses, families. Over 1,000 sickness reports received by Save Our Shores from water users. And D, get acknowledgement from Muir, that's the minister, that he sees this as an emergency that requires urgent action, not a 5 or 10 year plan, immediate action. We know that clearly didn't happen. So, right from the start, back up to the top, how we don't want people to see business as usual, we need transformational change.
So when we hit him with that, the response was that it was quite patronising. Actually, it was he kind of went off on a spiel that change doesn't happen overnight. It's not realistic to expect him to come in and, you know, all guns blazing and turn the world upside down and suddenly Lough Neagh will be fixed. And the phrase he used was, "It could take years, it could take decades."
It will.
But that's if you do the right things now. He's like, well, hopefully we'll get to it 5 years from now. Hopefully, we're like, we'll come on to it a bit later, I suppose. But one of his big things was, you know, we need to change the way we educate farmers. We need to change the way we engage with them. And it's like, that is a long-term commitment. But what's that going to do for us now? What's that going to do for us for the next 5-10 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, 1B, talk about Lough Neagh Coalition 5 campaign demands. 1, an end of private ownership of Lough Neagh. Now, this is a particular of everybody involved in this campaign.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that?
So, people within the campaign have different thoughts on this, to be fair. And something that we can collectively agree on is that we'll take it out of private hands. You know, should it be state ownership? Should it be some sort of community ownership? Should it be, like, you know, should we have it?
But either way, the status quo isn't.
We've all agreed that it can't be owned by an English aristocrat that sits over in Dorset in a big country palace and exploits the loch. Yeah.
Which is hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen.
It is medieval. You said it earlier. It's medieval. Like.
It is medieval.
It is. It's nuts.
It really is medieval.
It's like the shit that led to the fucking French Revolution, mate. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And here we are, 300 years later.
Oh, 100%.
250
This
or whatever.
is the. It is staggering. You know, Lord Shaftesbury, and he through inheritance it's actually quite fascinating how he ended up. They're making a movie or something about it, or a documentary or something, and
I think so.
how he ended up in this situation. But no doubt the film will sort of greenwash or whitewash or whatever his involvement in the whole situation. But the reality is, English lords came here 400 years ago, massacred their way across Ulster, and basically ended up through and then massacred each other, and then it ended up in the estate of Shaftesbury. So and hence we end up with a situation where some fucker in Dorset, literally living in a country mansion. And I was talking to our friend from Friends of the Earth
At the festival?
and he was about they had the could you
Are you talking about his big festival he holds on
yes
the land?
yes
Oh Jesus! Oh,
the environmental festival.
yeah. Like, do you know we should
There we are.
we should get the description of it up if you can. There, it's the wankiest
Oh
thing.
yeah, well let's see if I can find it.
The wankiest thing you've ever heard.
So just real brief, the Earl of, I'm going to type this in to see if I can find it. Earl of Shaftesbury, probably spelled wrong. Festival.
I think it's the first result. I was looking at it the other day.
Realisation
That's it.
Festival.
Yeah, that's it there.
St Giles House, Dorset. Okay. Let me see if I can get that. I'm going to get this up.
It's mental.
Do you know what? Do you know who?
But it's 500 quid a ticket, so they're all dickheads anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's just get
Who
away.
has 500 quid to sit in a room
Let me see if I
listening
can
to the Earl of Shaftesbury greenwash himself? Like,
look at this shit here. Look at this shit here, boys. Let me see now. I'm just gonna, let me get it up. There we go. Sorry, people, just doing a bit of live editing here for you. So this is the Realization Festival. This is some middle class white hippie bullshit.
I wouldn't even say middle class. I would say aristocrat.
aristocrat,
Like, look at the
yeah.
fucking room they're sitting in.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this on the podcast, I really urge you to go and have a look at the video. You'll get it on YouTube, or you can go to my Patreon, and you can watch it there. And this is they're literally sitting in some sort of yoga fucking circle in a room from a country estate, and it's just a typical country estate room. Huge portraits of his murdering fucking ancestors on the walls. Buy tickets for 2024. Let's have a little look here.
If you go to About, right, you
About.
need to hear what the festival is about, and it'll blow your mind.
Okay,
It will blow your mind.
Oh, here, yeah, this is it. Oh, here we go. So this is Realization. Now, bear in mind, this is the man who is in ownership of Lough Neagh that is currently being poisoned to death, and his family who murdered the way across Ireland to claim ownership of it in the first instance. A gathering of unlearning and reimagining. That's corporate bullshit right there, isn't it?
It is.
Realization is a gathering. Is a gathering that is a part retreat, part symposium. I don't know. What is a symposium? At St Giles's House, Dorset. It is for those actively working at the interface between society and soul.
Yeah.
And who feel the gravity of our times. Over the course of 4 days, June 24, you will engage with some of the most exciting thinkers and practitioners of our time, share experience, expertise, music, movement, food.
Go down to the bottom, right?
Yeah. Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
Okay.
Read this bit.
So it says, as an educational space, St Giles's green landscape encourages participants to reflect on their relationship to inquiry, dialogue, and well-being as tools for social change. The setting will also provide a connection with the natural environment to help inform questions around our relationship with nature and the planet.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
How about we don't poison it?
I know, that's it. I know.
So did they have to get somebody in as a speaker to confirm that this shouldn't be killing before they actually do anything?
If the Earl of Shaftesbury talks about it, I mean, it's just fucking peak irony at that point, like, isn't it?
The gathering of thinkers, artists, pioneers, and practitioners and performers and dreamers is hosted by the 12th Earl of Shaftesbury in collaboration with a team of expert generalists. I still don't actually know what the fuck this thing is.
Exactly.
This is just corporate bollocks. Let's see who the speakers are. Keynote speaker, Ashida Sadiq, Rowan Williams, the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Is that who that is?
That's who that is. Who, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't the Church of Rowan, or maybe he's ex. Rowan Williams, born in Swansea. Archbishop of Canterbury, 2012, now lives in Cardiff. Archbishop of Canterbury of the Church of England, who have yet to actually, going off topic, acknowledge the call for ceasefire in Gaza. The Church of England haven't done
Somewhat not surprising, like.
Isn't that fantastic? Indra Adnan, Dominique Savitri Bonarji, Brittany Hughes.
Don't know any of these people, to be fair.
She used to be a broadcaster. I remember her from something. Oh, she's like a historian. Helen of Troy. Yeah. Channel 4. I remember her. Historian, yeah. Yeah. What a load of fucking old wank. What a load of old wank.
What the hell's a realization player?
A realization player. Let's have a find out. Susan is a member of So Susan Harrison, member of Showstopper, the improvised musical. She's also improvised with Mischief movie. Now, I don't know. Will be improvising a mini musical, exploring whichever themes are. That sounds fucking terrible. Yeah.
But so this is the crack. That estate in Dorset
Kiwi
is
tree band.
absolutely massive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to charge 500 quid a ticket for people to come and listen to the Earl of Shaftesbury
That-
talk about the connection between society and soul and how we can fucking live in harmony with nature. But you know what's really interesting, actually? There's an extinction group, or it's a chapter or branch or whatever in that area called Extinction Rebellion Wimborne. And they have already held a protest in that outside that big country house, drawing attention to what the Earl of Shaftesbury's doing in the Lough Neagh.
Oh, really?
Aye, so we're hoping that we can basically convince them to call a big massive protest while this is on and just disrupt the fuck out of
There
it.
was a kind of hope that some people would be able to make it over from here. Wasn't there? We were talking about that with
James Weir.
yeah.
Aye. But there's a big event here called The Gathering. That's that same weekend. It's really, really good environmental event.
Where's it?
I think it's in Craigan, or it's somewhere in. I could be completely wrong. I think it's somewhere like up Spurns direction. But
I'll find
really,
out about it
really
and,
worthwhile going to. Bernadette is speaking at it.
Brilliant.
And other quite good environmentalists and stuff. But that's the festival. So that's what he's all about anyway.
What a load of old pish.
So-
Did you ever hear anything that's fucking wanky in your life?
My personal view on it is that we should be taking it back off him, and he shouldn't receive a penny for it. But I think
Yeah.
at the minute his valuation is somewhere between 8 and 12 million.
Which isn't a lot of money.
But he's been. I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's fucking taxpayer money.
No,
You know what I
absolutely,
mean?
absolutely. It's just, yeah, I agree. If I buy a lottery ticket every week, honest to God, in the hope that I get enough money to just buy the bloody thing and give it to the people. I don't want
Rights
to.
of nature or
I
something.
don't want to become the Earl of Lurgan.
That would be hilarious.
It's mine now. God damn it.
And you can hold a festival in this very studio.
Yeah,
About the connection between
our backyard.
Yeah.
All the while raking in fucking massive profits from fucking
Brilliant.
the destruction of it. Going, what a load of old fucking hippie pish. Did you ever hear anything as bad in your
I
life?
know. Yeah, it's mental.
Oh, anyway.
But sure.
So, establishment of an independent environmental protection agency. You've touched upon that.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to give us more about that, or it's just what you've said already?
Basically, what I've said.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my expertise at all.
Yeah.
Friends of the Earth really take the lead on that.
Yeah.
It kind of is, as I said earlier, just a way of regulating and enforcing and.
Obviously, they would need a significant tranche of powers really to enforce, because a £200 fine just isn't going to cut
it's
it.
not cutting it.
Even if it is with the EPA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So urgent investment in a research and recovery plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing I've found, and reopening of facilities like Trad Point was the place that did the water testing, right?
Aye.
So the interesting thing that I found from going to the various meetings up at Toom and up at the Seamus Heaney meeting place
Balahi
and
and-
Balahi and
yeah.
places like that, is the wealth of information that the scientific community have is all there.
Oh, big time.
I mean, it's not like we need to start this research.
Mm-hmm.
The research has been ongoing from the late 60s, early 70s.
People, because there was a massive algae bloom, and I might get the date wrong, so apologies if I do, but I think it was like around 1970 or 71. And like Bernadette, I assume she was Devlin at that time,
Yeah.
was one of the big campaigners trying to, draw attention to that issue at that time, just 50 years ago. So if you think about it, she started that fight 50 years ago. People have been researching it up until the present day. It's only last summer
Yeah.
that the public basically caught wind of it and the media caught wind of it. But there's plenty of really good journalists and
Yeah.
environmental scientists and Friends of the Earth, other groups that have been saying this is about to happen.
Yeah, they've
You
been
know what I
warning.
mean?
They've been warning about this, and that's it. And they have the scientific data to back up their research ongoing. And they've been warning that this is going to come. I think the thing that they got wrong is that it didn't come sooner. I think they thought it would happen sooner, but it came nonetheless.
That's it.
So point 4, address the pollution extraction through ending commercial sand dredging, reducing sewage dumping and tackling agricultural runoff. For people that don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but for people that don't know, Lough Neagh's sand is amongst the best graded quality sand in the world, to the point that other parts come to play golf,
Yeah.
etc. It's used for many purposes, building purposes and whatever. But the golf clubs of the world treasure sand from Lough Neagh. The problem is it's being extracted at in such amounts
Yeah.
that it's obviously causing environmental damage.
Big time.
Among other things, the unique fish species and eels, they lay their eggs and things in the sand, and then the sand gets disturbed and stuff like that. So, but and then there's scars. I do find it amazing though that there hasn't been almost a geological study of the sand bed, that we can, like, you can do those things where you can do a sonic echo map,
Like sort of radar.
like
kinda,
radar thing where
yeah.
you can actually see, because we know that these massive trenches from the cranes pulling the sand out, the diggers pulling the sand, we know that they exist, but I've never seen an actual diagram of it.
Do you want to see one?
Yes, I do.
So if you Google the detail,
The detail.
Lough Neagh sand dredging. This article was done by a very good investigative reporter, journalist, and friend of the campaign, Tommy Green. And look at the date on that.
22.
You know what I mean? So like these people had their finger on the
Yeah.
pulse. So if you scroll down, you'll see the diagram you're looking for.
Let's open this up for. Yeah,
Keep her going.
yeah.
Keep going. Keep going. Oh, it must be a different.
Yeah.
Must be the
Let me
other.
just-
Must be the other article actually.
Let me see if I can.
I think.
There are facts on sand dredging. This must be it. Oh,
Yeah, this is the one, right? So if you scroll down,
holy shit.
so it's the depth it should have been when you scroll up.
Yeah. That's the natural depth, 2.7 metres. Because Lough Neagh isn't very deep, by the way. There's
No.
parts in the middle of it where you can actually walk. You can get out of a boat and walk, and you'll only be ankle deep in water. So, for the people that are listening, there's a diagram here on the screen, and it's a kayak, 2.7 metres, showing the scale. And we can see here, this should be the natural depth of the loch. But the dredged lake depth goes down to 21 metres.
Mm-hmm.
So
70 foot, I think the equivalent is.
this must be at the most 3 metres deep,
Aye.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think it should say in there.
Dredging has caused everything. Well, let's say by that diagram, that we're going to be generous. Let's say 4 metres. That's
Aye.
4 metres deep.
Mm-hmm.
And the dredging has dredged down to 21 metres.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
That it's like if you read Tommy's work, there's studies have been done that show that those areas that have been dredged have led to dead zones for fish, like the protected species you talked about before,
Yeah.
like the pollen, Lough Neagh eel.
Which is hilarious, actually. I mean, it's hilarious in it's darkly hilarious in the sense that it is literally an environmental an area of special scientific interest. The moss beds, the reeds, all the diving birds, it's all unique. Eels,
Heron cran,
hercran, pollen,
Lough
Dullahan,
Neagh fly, even the
fly.
fucking midgie, like.
Which, by the way, it was for those of us that live around here, the lack of last year was terrifying.
It's weird.
They just didn't fucking appear.
Yeah, I have seen some this year
I've seen
already,
some
which
this
is
year,
which is
yeah,
good,
yeah,
but
yeah,
still,
yeah. I've seen a few wee but you mean
it's not. Yeah, we can't just say, well, back to normal. Then
No,
you know.
if you live around Lough Neagh, the thing is between May and June, usually that couple of months, they run into May and then they run out of June as well. They don't just appear all of a sudden, but it feels like that sometimes. There's the Lough Neagh fly, and when we say that they come in swarms, I mean
nuts.
they will cover you. They're in their hundreds of billions, these little things, but they are a part of the food chain, and probably the first part of the food chain. Everything eats these, and last year, for the first time in my memory, it felt like they just didn't appear.
I can't remember exactly what the reason for that was, but it was something about the eggs. It was something about the eggs they were laying.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, last year there was basically none of them,
Yeah.
and the knock-on effect of that was that their eggs fed other things in the food chain, like
Yeah.
the fish and stuff. So the fish populations suffered as a result, and birds that fed on those fish suffered as a result, and it was just a whole.
And that is a small, well, it's not a small part, it's a huge part of the problem, in the sense that what happened, we'll get into it, because we're going to talk about it, about the agricultural runoff, so it won't just jump ahead too much. We'll produce exception, and then back to the minutes. Investigate granting Lough Neagh rights of nature status. Now that's very important, very interesting. So what is rights of nature status?
So as far as I understand it, and it's like a legal framework. People like Environmental Justice NI and stuff like that are doing research, and it's being looked into in the south as well. It basically, as far as I understand it, gives Lough Neagh the ability to own itself, nearly. Like, it doesn't have an owner. It basically has rights to own itself. And then with that protection, like, it's still basically just a concept at this point. So people are still looking into it to see what it would entail and how it will be addressed. We think it's something that should be investigated, something that should be explored, because I imagine it would be something similar. It would have protections then, and you wouldn't be allowed to exploit the sand deposits at the bottom and stuff like that. And the pollution going into it would be better regulated and stuff. But I don't know an awful lot about it. But we think it sounds like it could be something that could be part of the solution. You know. So that's
it's an interesting. I do like the concept, because I do think at this point the current legislation and the current legal frameworks and the current political institutions that we work under and live in, they're not doing their job. So we're maybe going to have to step outside that and think of something new to do.
That's it.
Because everything else has been hacked.
As we said earlier, it needs transformational change.
Transformational change.
You know what I mean? So
exactly. So onwards, Mary, to talk about the impact crisis on local communities, dippers, businesses, families. 1,000 sickness reports received by Surfers Against Sewage, or Save Our Shores.
It was,
Surfers Against Sewage, was it?
Aye.
Oh, Surfers Against Sewage from water users. Now, Mary is one of the lead campaigners from Save Our Shores.
Yeah.
And she is, her personal story is she's a swimmer.
She's a cold water. She leads a big cold water swimming group in Lough Neagh.
And I've heard her talk about that, about the importance of that, physical and mentally, physical health and mental health. And I can attest to both of those. I'm a swimmer myself, and hardly got to do any last year.
No.
Because of the fucking bloom.
Well, I went for a swim the year before.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I'm never going to do this again, because I got out and I was just covered head to toe in slime.
I went down to start training for 2 triathlons. I'd already signed up to. One was Donaghadee. And this is the fucking kicker. I was doing my running, I was doing my cycling, and then it says I need to I'm a good swimmer, but I need to kick on, do a couple of months proper swimming training for this. And I went down I'd signed on for Donaghadee, and just the week before I went down to the loch to start my swimming training. There'd been a report about a sewage release at Donaghadee Harbour, and the people with the triathlon people and the Surfers Against Sewage and stuff were saying, listen, we can't swim in this. We're literally swimming in human shit.
We're going to get really fucking sick here.
And Mark, I don't know what his name is, one of the BBC news people, he was going to be doing the microphone duties at the triathlon. So I put it up on my Twitter account, about politics, culture and some other shit on Twitter, everybody. I put it up on my Twitter account, and he commented, sure, it'll be dead on, I'll be up there and all this sort of stuff. And then a week later I went down to do my swimming training, start my training, and I couldn't get into the loch.
That was right at that time then, was it?
Right, and it only got worse from there. It was like I went down and it was like, what the fuck is this? You could smell it. You started to be able to smell it. And then all my family all come from Casters Bay, so I phoned my cousin up. What's it like around Casters Bay? Is there a lot of algae there? And said, oh yeah, you can see it from the house. You know, that was it. It was so I never got to do my training, so I didn't get to do my triathlon.
People that didn't live near the loch or weren't in this area, they don't know. Whenever you tell them that there was a smell, people are often kind of confused about that, or they didn't know about it. The smell was grim,
and it was
like a fucking awful.
There was
stench.
a rat, but there was a real chemical fucking undertone to it.
Yeah, it's like ammonia or something.
Yeah, it was fucking horrible. and then you're supposed to go and swim in it.
Well, people were getting sick just from being around it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? All the gases it gives off.
That's
you
right.
know, so, but Mary is a fantastic activist.
Yeah.
And that Save Our Shores page, I'm sure loads of people are familiar with it. Just kind of sprang up organically, and people were sharing photos of the algae and going, "What the fuck's going on here?" And networking with each other and organising public meetings and getting to know each other, protests, demonstrations, all the rest of it. And I don't think a lot of that would have happened if it wasn't for Mary and Save Our Shores. I think it was a really good vessel for people to discuss and organise.
Oh yeah.
So shout out to Mary, fair play. You know,
Oh, absolutely. She's fantastic.
giving a good voice to Lough Shore communities.
Inspirational, and I do like. I do love it when I have a particular fondness for bulgy women. It's just you know, like Bernadette McAlliskey and women, like whenever she stood up at Tomb and she told us all off. She says she didn't give a shit about it until it affected you personally. I'm not offended by that. I go, you're absolutely right. And I don't want us to call anybody a bulgy woman, but Mary seems to me to be that sort of a person which is stand up and just call a spade and
very strong, like
call it out and just say this is what we're saying here. And you know, if you're full of shit, you're full of shit.
She'll call you out.
Exactly. I actually appreciate that. So onwards. Get an acknowledgement from Muir, the Minister, that he sees this as an emergency that requires urgent action and not a 5 or 10 year plan. Clearly that didn't happen.
No.
He
actually word for word said that it would be a 5-10 year plan or more. So,
but did they expand on what that meant?
Very, very vaguely. So I had a section 3 there on policy, and he said things will be announced in the coming weeks about, like, so basically they had a 3-pronged approach to strategy on environmental policy. I'll not say too much actually in case that is an issue, but they said we'll learn more in coming weeks, but didn't give very much away, you know.
Weeks, he said weeks.
Yeah.
Onwards, part 2, privatisation of Lough Neagh. Brona put across our demand for state acquisition. Can the Minister confirm he agrees? Did he?
No.
He didn't?
No.
What did he say?
So he said that's nothing to do with us. Lough Neagh Partnership are investigating that. And do you know about Lough Neagh Partnership?
I am aware of, and yes I do. Do you want to tell our listeners?
Lough Neagh Partnership is an NGO, like a non-governmental organisation that gets a shitload of money from the government, ostensibly for the protection of Lough Neagh and the invested infrastructure. And they're supposed to be creating wee jetties and stuff, and then, you know, those information boards you would see talking about the species and all the rest of it. You get a lot of money, like. But the problem with Lough Neagh Partnership that we've discovered is their board consists of
funding.
Their board consists of allegedly the Earl of Shaftesbury, allegedly executives of sand dredgers, allegedly people that are involved with it, you know, big farming. So we think they're potentially a cover for extractivism.
I want to call this. I call this right at the very beginning.
He's got it.
Right at the very beginning. I knew they were fucking dodgy.
Yeah.
Right from the very start, I knew they were fucking dodgy. I said it to Jeannie in the house. This is whenever all this Save Our Shores started and all the rest. And they were one of the, you know, the people that was named. And I just did a quick Google.
Yeah.
And a quick Google search of who these people are. And you're going, like Norman Emerson's.
Yeah.
Is
Exactly.
He's like, as soon as I saw that Norman Emerson's was involved with them, I just went, bullshit.
Yeah.
Complete bullshit. There's no fucking way you're legit.
Do you know what might happen now that you're saying this? You might get hit with what's known as slap litigation. So for anybody that doesn't know, people that were critical of Lough Neagh Partnership started getting legal letters, cease and desist letters, including, well, not say anybody's names, but
it was just Facebook pages and things like that as well.
Yeah. So people, it was nothing actually to do with anything that was being said, but they're willing to try and stifle any public, you know, criticism of what they're up to.
Yeah.
And I like, if we've put in freedom of information requests on them and stuff before, and they're like, we're not beholden to that, we don't have to release any of this information, right? So this is a really shady, non-transparent organisation with like extractivists and polluters represented on its board that gets a lot of money, a lot of funding from the government, from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and Deirdre and Andrew Weir are saying, we don't know anything about the ownership of Lough Neagh. That's Lough Neagh Partnership are investigating that. So To be honest, I think that's really worrying. That the department is basically given a blank check to Lough Neagh Partnership to say you investigate what it means to own Lough Neagh. Because if they own Lough Neagh, if they put themselves forward as the vessel that'll manage it, you know, either in state ownership or in community ownership or whatever, they're saying, you know, we're already the vessel that manages Lough Neagh. Let us own it. That's should be extremely worrying.
Yeah.
You know, but
Which
that's
is-
all here. That's obviously just speculation. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's fucking terrifying. Yeah. I knew they were fucking rubbish.
What else have you got a prediction on, mate?
Oh, no,
This is it.
I've got a good bullshit fucking. I've got a good nose for this stuff, and I knew it was right from the very start. Right from the very start.
If it doesn't pass your test, mate, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm fucking slow in so many ways, but I saw that one ages ago. Okay, ask if Dara have entered negotiations with the Earl. You've obviously, clearly they haven't. What is his current valuation of the lock? 8 to 12?
Didn't answer any of that.
None of that?
Again, Lough Neagh Partnership.
Does the department agree on this evaluation? Ask about discussions between Lough Neagh Partnership that relate to we've already covered that.
So we were hoping to tease out a bit more information about it, but again, there was none sort of forthcoming.
Yeah. It's, unbelievable. Policy. Highlight Dara's recent press statement. Difficult decisions will have to be made. And query what this is. Did he had these minutes before?
No.
Highlight Dara's and recent press statement. Difficult decisions will have to be made and query what this is.
So actually, this wasn't as bad as we thought it was. We were thinking difficult decisions meant, you know, sacrificing, like what should be action that should be taken on Lough Neagh. I think from the sounds of what he's saying, difficult decisions actually replied to farmers might not be too happy with. And like to give credit where it's due, if that is the case, obviously not. There's been no action points yet. But
I mean, farmers aren't going to be happy if. I mean,
they're never going to be happy. Like.
No, they're not. But I mean, we for those, I don't know if you'll hardly get into it in this, but for our listeners, we should tell them that a big part of the problem is the chemicals that are being run off from farms,
slurry
spread, all the
animal waste, all of it.
And they're literally running into Lough Neagh. There's supposed to be a buffer around Lough Neagh, a natural buffer to stop all this, but that doesn't happen. And so the chemicals are what the algae bloom feed on.
Yeah.
The algae bloom then covers the surface of the loch, stopping light getting through, killing whatever's underneath. Then the algae die off. They land on the bed of the loch. Then they die off. That creates a carbon dioxide release, which then kills the fish in the area.
Takes the oxygen
out of the water, kills the fish. Then the diving birds come to eat the fish. The fish aren't there. They die, etc., etc. So it's just this horrible cycle of fucking destruction. Mm-hmm. And we know that the nitrates and the runoff from the farms is a huge, we're talking like 60-70%
exactly
of the problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't see how this can be fixed without that number being addressed.
100%. And, you know, people will point to septic tanks, for example, about this is where some of the nutrients that are leaching into the water table are coming from. And that is true. But focusing our time and effort and resources on trying to replace individual people's septic tanks, like old leaky septic tanks, when, as you say, I think the number is close to 70% of the excess nutrients in the water, excess phosphorus, excess nitrogen, are coming from agricultural sources. There needs to be a massive overhaul of enforcement of, you know, breaches. People are spreading slurry. Whenever they say it's going to be a rainy season, because they know it'll just, like, you know, if it's, they know that there's forecast for a week of rain, they're like, oh sweet, we'll spread the slurry and so it'll seep into the soil and it'll wash away into nearby tributaries,
and
streams, whatever.
That's it, gotten rid of.
That's it, out of my hands, and the ground's fertilised. It's off my land. Like, they should be paying to remove their slurry and stuff, and they're only allowed to spread it in certain times.
But again, there's no enforcement of that. I was talking to my father about this the other day, and he remembers from years ago, he'd be, you know, driving somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning, going out to the road, go to the airport or something, and such a farmer, won't name them, slurry tank firing up the road at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Aye.
He's going, where's he going? Straight to the river.
Aye, probably.
Just
like,
to empty it into a river.
Aye.
You know,
Yeah.
again, not all farmers, and we don't want to imply anything other than that.
No.
Where did we get up to? Oh yeah,
Aye.
yeah, difficult decisions to be made. Policy, offer him an out in regard. We're talking about the Earl. Offer him an out in regard to asking what the environmental legislation. Oh no,
Offer the department and out basically, but
Sorry, right,
offering up a few quick wins. So that was stuff like commitment to a land use strategy, commitment to a nutrient management plan. These are things again that a lot of this stuff was informed by academics at Queen's, like people like Mark Emerson,
Yeah.
John Barry, etc., Brona McNeil, and others. People a lot smarter than I am, like, so, you know, these are things that they think should have been brought in. And I mean, he didn't say no, but he just said, like, leave it with us, you know.
Yeah.
We'll just wait and see what we do. You'll find out more in the coming weeks. So he didn't flat out say no to some of this stuff, some of these policy changes, but he didn't say yes either. So we don't know, basically.
well maybe he didn't. Hopefully, this just didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt until otherwise, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, worst comes to worst, they were all taking notes, and we did bring up pretty much every agenda point. That these agenda points are informed by what working class grassroots communities want, by what academics, environmental scientists want, by what nature conservation organisations want. So, like, even having them on the table, and you know, hopefully it informs the decisions they make in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
You know.
and that is it's important to underline. This is our loch.
Yeah, 100%.
This is our loch. This is our. I mean, culturally, historically, and actually, we're the ones we own it because we live with the consequences of it.
Jim Conway, I'm sure you've heard him talk about it. Talks about you know, how Lough Neagh, the shores of Lough Neagh, and some of the tributaries and streams and rivers and stuff were some of the earliest places that, you know,
Yeah.
our ancestors lived.
Yeah.
And like, it's our heritage, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
absolutely,
belongs to all the people. In fact, it belongs to none of us. We should be living in harmony with it, you know.
Well, exactly.
We don't own it, but
That is the problem. Essentially, is that there is no harmonial balance between what we use the loch for and our responsibility. There seems to be no sense of responsibility.
But that's capitalism, man. Like,
Aye.
it's the individualism that comes along with it, where it's always someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And it's looked at as a resource. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
And
it's been exploited. Like,
It is a resource.
the finite sand at the bottom of it is being, you know, extracted out. They're conducting surveys to see if there's lignite and gold and all sorts in the region that can be mined out. It's used as a dump, a personal sewage for farmers to get rid of their fucking waste.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, like, that's all it is for people. It's just convenient to their business interests.
Yeah.
And nothing else beyond that. But that's what capitalism does to the fucking world, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I was listening to Richard Wolff a few weeks ago, and he explained about how capitalism moves. It's always moved, and he was talking about, he went to visit a friend of his, in some New England or in America, some state, I don't know, whatever. But there was these. He says the town was so typical of so many towns. They've been deindustrialized, and they've got these big red brick, formerly cotton mills or something like that. Some building that was used for industry. He says, and then he explained about, so capitalism started in Holland and England, and then it moved out to India, to Ireland, into Africa, and everywhere it goes, it just exploits and destroys, literally like a plague of locusts. It goes and it exploits the resource of the people and the natural resource that's there, and then when it's done with that, it'll then go somewhere else. And I was reminded of and these big old buildings, the local council were trying to find a use for these because they're still functioning buildings, but there's nothing in them.
Aye.
And there's nothing they can do with them.
Aye.
They're huge.
Yeah.
And he said, no, that's just the way capitalism, it'll come and it'll do a thing and then it'll go, that factory is probably still in that business still exists, but it's probably being manufactured in Indonesia, Malaya, China, or somewhere else. But he said about just just that it moves on.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about trying to bring jobs back home, in America, does that mean trying to get jobs back to America? He says it will never happen.
Ship has sailed.
It's not in the nature of the beast. It will not do it. And just sort of reminded of the situation here, that the resource will be exploited to exhaustion before, and then capitalism will move on, leaving the public purse with the bill of the cleanup.
Aye, pretty much, yeah. This is it. Well, it's like capitalism has an inherent need for perpetual growth of profits.
Yeah.
So, like, once it's basically exploited everything this place has to offer, and for us that was like, lumber originally. Like when Ireland was pretty heavily forested. Obviously, it's one of the lowest in Europe now.
Yeah.
Agriculture, like fucking people at one point. You know what I mean? But like this is it. What are we left with? We're a service economy now with weird, 21st century jobs that probably won't exist for very much longer. And
No. So working for some hipster bank, as Mick Lynch calls them. So onwards. Discuss the urgency of establishing an EPA. Ask about department's progress so far. Has a draft been created, etc.?
So on that, he said that was one of their manifesto promises, but no more info than that. I think it was essentially we hope to get to that at some point, but no information on it.
D. Cahill was to bring up current regulatory issues and cross-compliance issues.
Don't ask me to talk about that.
Okay. Ruby to speak on live water monitoring. That's I think that's essential. By the way,
Yeah.
that is really, and it's also something that we can do current. And like right now, this can be done, and it's
Effective immediately.
Immediately. To speak on live water and monitoring, 22 million. Is that million?
Yeah.
Tons of sewage spilled based on 80% of available data. Present Alan and Helen Key's plan on water monitoring. Is Alan the English guy?
Not too sure where he's from.
Used to work in the water monitoring plant.
It probably is then. He's an older guy now. Like
I think he's good.
But
Helen and Alan have request further meeting with Dara to discuss.
So basically someone had passed across a research document that they had produced that they had been carrying out studies themselves for the past few years around water quality and the water monitoring infrastructure and stuff like that. So we passed that across. We'll hope something will come out of it. But 22 million tons of sewage, and they use this term spilled, and I think this is like a really sneaky term because it's not it implies it's an accident, but it's not. It's dumping. Like it should. We really need to start calling it sewage dumping, because that's what it is. Like the sewage infrastructure is not there, and they just say, "Sweet, we'll just let it overflow."
Yeah.
Straight into our waterways, straight to our coastlines, and ultimately, in this case, a lot of it ends up in Lough Neagh.
Just as I'm just reading ahead there. So these 2 points are actually connected, as you said. So the 22 million tons of sewage spilled based on 80% available data, etc. Then that leads us into discuss water pollution current fines models, suggest removing fines cap introduced by Edwin Poots. Those 2 points connect directly. Edwin Poots introduced the going for growth strategy, right? Was he the minister at the time?
I don't know if he was at that time. I would need to check that.
But it's been called the Polluters Charter.
Yeah.
It's been called the Polluters Charter, basically. So a £200 fine for a multi-million-pound business dumping their sewage, their waste, into a river, it's fucking laughable. Like.
Yeah. The thing is, I think whenever they're talking about 22 million tons, I'm pretty sure that's mostly human waste. That doesn't even factor in, the agricultural waste that ends up in rivers and stuff like
Jesus
that.
Christ.
So, because as I said earlier, 12 million tons of pig waste alone. and then you factor in chickens, beef, you know, all the rest of it.
Suggest implementing more severe fines. Did you get anything there? No, didn't expect it. No.
I actually thought that could have been one, because we kind of phrased it as like, look, you know, your predecessor was pretty unpopular and he brought in some unpopular legislation and stuff. It'll be good for your legacy, you know. Like, I don't think we raised it in those exact terms, but basically that was how it was brought up. But like, it would be, you know, being very quick, like this stooge of the big farming sort of industry up here has brought in these fines, or these caps on fines. I'm just going to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so the last point, immediate asks, it is predicted that Lough Neagh will suffer the same tragedy this summer as last. I don't see how it can't, knowing what I know about the nature of these blooms. You've stated yourself this is an emergency, so the campaign demands effective immediately to introduce a temporary ban on commercial sand extraction. Ask a minute. I love this. Ask the minister's team to read Tommy Green's investigative report titled "Lough Neagh Facts on Sand Dredging" in the detail. Which, by the way, folks, if you want to go and check that out, it's the detail website, and you'll get all this information that is in these minutes. Sand dredging in the detail cites who testify dredging has created long-term scarring on the loch bed up to 70 foot deep, devastates wildlife populations. Dr. Les Gornall also posits that the dredging stirs up nutrient deposits, yes, bound to, isn't it, on the loch bed, and exacerbates the eutrophication, thank you.
It's basically just what the blue-green algae is you know, eutrophication.
And effective immediately to introduce a temporary ban on slurry spreading within the Lough Neagh catchment. Again, these are two basic things that just you need to start there, absolutely. Their statistics show almost 70% of excess nutrients come from agricultural pollution. Temporary ban would mitigate this while we implement a full recovery plan. What I love is, I hate whenever, and it's always environmentalists and people doing good work, when they make a demand and then they start with a dilution of the demand immediately. They just start to go, well, we would like to talk, it's just, no, we want this stopped.
Yep.
That's what we want. We want we don't want to have another look at it and do that. We have the information. We want to stop now. Now, you know, realistically, that's not going to happen. But if you go in already, you know, offering prepared to take 60%, and he can see that you're prepared to take 60% of what you really need straight away, then you'd be lucky if you get fucking 5%.
Well, you know, this is it, exactly. Yeah, it's just basic negotiating, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, he's obviously saying we want to make these sort of gradual changes that'll take effect over the long term. Everybody that lives shores and the scientific community are saying we don't have that time to waste. Yeah. Like, if there's another couple of years of this and the pollution continues the way it is, like, all the species that call Lough Neagh home will go extinct. You know what I mean? Like, the life will be wiped out. It'll become a dead zone, basically, just a sacrifice zone. And we thought that those 2 points were things that they might be unpopular. They were guaranteed to be unpopular with the fucking extractivists, the sand extractors and farmers. Yeah. But on the farming slurry one, there's, you know, Lough Corrib. So they had an algae problem as well, and people should look into this. It's really interesting. And the government in the south brought in a policy where they would actually take every single ounce of slurry out of the catchment area of Lough Corrib for 5 years, and that was what they did. And like, I'm not going to say that the issue is completely, you know, grand or whatever, but they're doing something on it.
But it shows you the level of the level of intervention that is required. We're not talking about, I mean, even if we just stop, like, so those last two demands, we need this to stop now. That's not enough. That's a great starting point. And given time, if those both stopped, given 3 or 4 lifetimes, everything will be fine. Yeah, I guess. But you're talking about that length of time. If we just stop now, we need to just stop this now, then implement our plan of how we're going to fucking fix this. Yeah. So mate, it's fantastic.
But yeah, that's that. Those two were rejected,
Yeah, well,
unsurprisingly.
I'm pretty sure you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. But I mean, we having it out there, putting the demand to them. This is what people want.
Yeah.
Politicians need to realise that they're accountable to the people that fucking put them there in the first place. You know what I mean? They're not just there for a big salary and to talk rings around whenever the fucking plebs like us come in to raise their concerns. And he came across very condescending in that way, you know, which I'm not a big fan of at all, for obvious reasons.
But that, I mean, that sort of, that leads me to sort of make a wider point about the general nature of politics.
Like liberal bourgeois politics, specifically.
Exactly. You know, so again, not everybody listens to this knows anyway. I'm a People Before Profit member. Actually, I have my welcome letter right there.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Poddy,
we got him.
Poddy had a long-term harassment campaign to get me to join.
It worked. It worked.
Yeah, but I won't be betraying anything by saying that. But my point is this: that people have become so disgusted and sickened with the way politics works. So one of the things that I hate, and one of the things that I do love about People Before Profit, is I hate whenever politics gets moved from the people that the politic affects. Mm-hmm. So we can see that the decisions of the political decisions that are made that affect our daily existences are being removed further and further and further. We can see it even at council level where we used to have a Lurgan council, and then we had a Craigavon council, and now we've got an Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon council, and then we've got a Stormont, and then we've got a Westminster, and then we've got a thing in Brussels which affects us obviously because we've the Northern Ireland Protocol and stuff like that. But before Brexit, we would have been. Those decisions are just being made by people that aren't from here, aren't of here, and aren't affected by the outcomes of those decisions.
100%.
And that naturally is going to lead to decisions being made that are unpopular on the ground. It's going to create a sense of disillusionment in politics, which you would say, well, for some people, that's a very good thing. They're delighted that that's going to be the case. You're going to become disconnected and disaffected and then disconnected from the body politic in general.
That's already happening, man. You know, like like any time we've been canvassing around doors, you know, last year for the assembly or the councils, the year before for the assembly election, people are just saying, "Oh, politics, don't want to know."
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Doesn't work.
Nothing has happened for the last X years or whatever.
Yeah.
And never mind that we propose a completely different. We propose a fucking revolution. Let's put it plainly, because reforming this stuff just doesn't work. Anyone that tries it fails or is taken out of the picture, like, you know. But what we want to do is an address to that exact problem that happens in a you know, bourgeois democracy is build democracy from the local level, have participatory democracy in our community, and representatives from them, you know, go up and up. It's democracy from below and informed by people power.
What do you want us to do with this? What, you know, you're not going to the minister and saying, "Oh, please, will you?" You're going to the minister and saying, "Fucking do what we're telling you."
And the thing is as well, you know, the ability to recall people that don't represent you. Like if you're picking between the lesser of two evil options when you're voting, you know, which is what people say here, they say it in England, they say it in America, and all sorts. If you don't vote this one, you're going to get this one.
Yeah.
If you don't vote this one, you're going to get this one.
Lesser of two evils.
Like, but once that lesser of two evils gets in, it's 4 years then, and they can just do whatever they want.
4 years of evil.
Or even just 4 years of not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, if it was going to be truly democratic, you should have the ability to recall people. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
But
that's what I say whenever. I mean, I bring it up in this podcast all the time. Our democracy has been completely hacked. We know that the lobbying. Again, this gets into the issue with Lough Neagh Partnership and all the other different lobby organisations. I have a particular disdain for that part of politics because it's not even they're not even attempting to hide that it's just bribery. It's just bribery.
That's what it is,
It's
under a
just
different name.
open bribery under a different name. So you can't bribe someone, but you can you can lobby them. And then here's the thing but no one has been able to answer this. Maybe you can. I don't know that you would. I don't know why you would. But why the fuck is a British parliamentarian allowed to accept donations?
Well, do you know why that is?
I don't know.
James Connolly, right? James Connolly said that governments in a capitalist society, they're only committees for managing the affairs of the wealthy.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing, I don't know if that's exactly how he said it or not. But like bourgeois democracy is like, it's an oligarchy. That's what it is. You know what I mean? Everything in a capitalist society is informed by the economic model of that society. So your government, your media, your fucking religious institutions, everything, they're informed by the economic system that you live in. They're never going to go against it. And in fact, they are committees of the rich. You know what I mean? Whoever has the most capital in our society informs political decisions. You know what I mean? It's not a democracy. That's why when people say, you know, well, like talking about our democracy or whatever, I would always make the qualifier. It's a bourgeois democracy.
Yeah.
It's not a real democracy.
No.
It's not a workers' democracy. You
No.
know what I mean? It's literally being run by the wealthy.
Yeah,
and you find that anywhere.
For the wealthy. But what I mean to say, I mean specifically, why is Labour Friends of Israel, you go through and they've all got something like 40% of the Labour Party in Britain and 70% of the Tory Party in Britain are all members of Labour Friends of Israel. There's no Labour Friends of Zimbabwe, just Israel. But they all take money from the Labour Friends of Israel. And I'm thinking, why are you allowed to take this money, and what do you do with it? You can't use it to run an election campaign because you're not allowed to. Because that's strictly, there's a tap on what you're allowed to spend. There's an upper limit. You're not allowed to spend it. It's not your money. You can't just take it because that's clearly then an open bribe. You don't use it for office costs because they're all covered by the taxpayer. So what is this money used for? And why is it a thing that you can accept it?
Salaries of employees, maybe.
I thought that was covered.
I think you do get a certain I think you do get a certain allowance. I think like MPs get, you know, an office and they get 3 or 4 or whatever staff or whatever. But you like that constituency then could say, fuck, sweet, we just got $500,000 from Friends of Israel. Do you want we can hire 3, 4, 5 extra people, get them out into the community, push our message, build a party.
Okay.
It's just a guess. Like I don't know.
Yeah, well, it would need to be. But
like the people that have the power
they need to stop it. But you can see how it's clearly used as a funnel to bypass presupposed norms that you can't give a politician money.
Literally,
you can't give a politician money.
It's such bullshit though, because that's all our politics is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they do it behind closed doors, or if they do it calling it lobbying, or if they do it, you know, whatever way they do it, it's still like our government operates on behalf of the wealthy. Like big corporations, like wealthy fucking aristocrats, whatever you want to call it. Those are the people that benefit from politics.
Yeah.
And when you have like, especially when you have in the UK, the House of Lords.
Yeah.
Like that's mental.
Yeah.
Like it's not even the facade of a democracy. Like it's not even like a liberal republic or whatever. That's archaic. Like,
is this the same country that goes around the world bombing places for democracy?
And people fucking believe it. Like, you know, it's not. It's mad.
It's staggering.
Well, some of it's like come out of like after, you know, the events of October 7th and the ongoing genocide in Palestine. Ursula von der Leyen of the EU, like chatting straight over there and saying, all the people of Europe are with you. Here's a green light. You do whatever you need to do. And I'm like, hold on a second.
For a woman
did I vote for you?
No one has voted for that woman.
Nah, it's a select committee of the leaders of Europe.
That's actually a really good example of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because whenever I put that, whenever she did that, I was going, this is a woman that nobody has voted for. I put it, tweeted or something, and then some fucking bootlick comes back and replied to me, yeah, but the people that were voted into the European Parliament voted for her. So the ministers, themselves, they voted for. So they voted.
I don't even think that's true.
I don't even think it's true. I think she was appointed, but nonetheless, it's actually an example if it is true, it's an example of what I'm saying is wrong.
Yeah.
With the democracy is so fucking remote
Yeah.
and foreign. It's not local. That it's completely ineffectual for the people on the ground. The workers that pay the taxes, that pay the fucking salaries, that
Big
these
time.
bastards buy the bombs with to give to fucking Israel.
Yeah, literally.
You know what I mean?
It's mental.
Fuck, here, listen.
You could be here all day,
You could be
couldn't
here
you?
all day. Well, listen, thank you for coming in. We'll get this up straight away. I will do this tonight. And we'll get the video and the audio. Everybody, you can watch this on YouTube or go to my Patreon. I have one tier, £1 a month is all it is. And you get the audio and the video. You can download them or just watch them from the Patreon platform with ad-free. That's the point of that. And if you want to contribute, if you don't want to do that, I understand. Everyone's asking you to do Patreon. You can do a buy me a coffee thing. You can go over, just throw a couple of bucks into the bucket. Helps me keep the lights on here at Super 8, and it means I can get to buy a new mic every now and again. So that's what I use that for. That's how I got this one from my Patreon subscribers.
You don't actually spend it on coffee then?
I don't actually spend it. Well, I don't know. You could say that. Poddy, thank you so much for coming in. Maybe you'll come back sometime and we'll have just a general politics discussion. Would you be up for
That'd be
it?
brilliant.
That'd be class.
Always up for it.
Absolutely. I'd love that. That'd be great. So, listen, thanks everybody. We're going to go stay on top of the issue of our beautiful Lough. It's with great sadness that we have to fucking tell you about these things, but, you know, we have to. And we urge you to share and spread the message, and without and put pressure on. We're going. I think we're going to hit a series of elections over the coming couple of years, and whenever people come and knock on your doors, please bring up Lough Neagh as an issue, and share this episode and help get the word out there. We'd really appreciate it. So thank you everybody. Take care, and I'll talk to you next week. There we go. Good man.
Sweet. Very good.